You're here. That's why I said you know so much. I think let's begin.
Yes, ma'am. We'll start. Mukesh is our host today. Mukesh.
Okay.
So, a very good afternoon to one and all present here. I am Mukesh Achari, and I welcome you to Big Awareness Program hosted by Institutions Innovation Council in collaboration with Venture Center NCL Pune. Now, BIG stands for Biotechnology Ignition Grant and is a scheme started by BIRAC. Now, BIRAC is Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council. BIG is a flagship program of BIRAC which provides fuel and support to young startups and innovators. BIG is the largest early stage biotech funding program in India, which funds up to 5 million rupees to best in class innovation ideas. Our speakers for today are Dr. Shalini Singh and Dr. Smita Kale. Dr. Shalini Singh holds a PhD in chemistry from University of Pune, and she has completed her postdoc from RMIT University, Melbourne. Now she is a specialist funding programs at Venture Culture and is actively involved in big management. And Dr. Smita Kale is a manager for Bio-Incubation at Venture Center. She is a PhD holder from ICT Mumbai and is leading bio-incubation activities like Center for Biopharma Analysis, CBA, and BIRAC's Regional Incubation Center at Venture Center. She will give us the insights about grant writing. I will now hand over to Dr. Shalini Singh.
Thank you, Mukesh, for the kind introduction, and welcome all the participants. And thank you, Padma Ma'am, for this opportunity. Can I get the sharing rights? Yeah, thank you. So I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So Big Call, as we know, is currently open and it will be open until 16th of August. Under Ministry of Science and Technology comes the Department of Biotechnology, which has led a non-for-profit company in March 2012, which we all know as Biotechnology Industry Research Assistant Council, that is BIRAC. Now, BIRAC has various funding schemes, and one such scheme today will be talking is Biotechnology Ignition Grant, that is BIG. So across India, we have overall 8 partners who are managing or implementing this program, and you can choose any one from those as your big partner. So the purpose for coming up with this big scheme was to foster generation of ideas which are having commercialization potential, to establish a proof of concept, to validate and upscale this proof of concept, and to stimulate enterprise formation. Now, this scheme gives you a 50 lakhs grant in aid for a period of 18 months, and this is available for startup as well as for individuals. So the scope of this scheme is, as I said, it is grant in aid form. Royalty and tech transfer clauses have been recently added, that is from Call 16. You get mentoring, advisory, and referral support from your chosen big partners. You benefit from learning, visibility, and networking in events which are organized by BIRAC as well as the partners. You get the opportunity to get your ideas evaluated by the experts. Now the highlights, just give me a minute. Yeah, sorry about that. What does the big scheme support? It helps you to validate your proof of concept. It helps to de-risk your technology. If you have some scientific data you want to demonstrate to investor, or you want to take your ideas to the commercial level, then this is all supported under the big scheme. Whereas if you want to just do the plain exploratory research, or you want to fund your PhD, or you don't have any plan for commercialization, or your idea is at a very later stage, which involves a lot many validation, clinical trials, ethical risks, then these are not supported under the big scheme. So these are the broad domains which are supported under this scheme, like healthcare, agriculture, industrial product, and others, which includes bioinformatics, analytical methods, etc. Now, these broad domains are further divided into theme and sub-theme categories. So like healthcare is divided to diagnostic, drugs, regenerative medicine, which are further divided into sub-themes like diagnostic is divided to human, animal, plant. Whereas if you see agriculture is further divided to fisheries, biopesticides, biofertilizers, secondary agricultures, and so on. Industrial biotechnology is further divided to bioenergy, biofuels, clean energy, waste management, etc. In collaboration, if you have any ideas with machine learning, IoT, automation, etc. So any idea falling under these theme or sub-theme categories are supported under this scheme. So if we see the typical process flow, the call is open twice a year. And first it goes into the eligibility round where your legal eligibility is checked. Once you clear that, it goes into the preliminary screening committee where your technical eligibility is taken care. Once you clear this, there's an online review round where your proposal is assigned to 5 reviewers. They read the proposal, review it, and score. And there is a cutoff decided. If you fall above the cutoff, then you have been called for the presentation. And here again, the reviewers review it and score you. And then in the ESC final round, there is the final round, the decision is taken who will get the big grant. And once you get the grant, a due diligence is done by the partner and an agreement signing takes place. And the first tranche is released by the chosen big partner. So this process takes up to 135 days, and these two are done within 2 months of time. And now if we see a brief eligibility, the biotechnology, if you're applying as a startup, then minimum 51% of capital should be owned by Indian resident. The company should be under 5 years old, and the company should have their own functional R&D. If you don't have, then you have to get incubated. There has to be one committed project leader which you have identified from your startup who will be responsible for taking up this project full time and for the technical and management aspect. He must be a shareholder in the startup and he must have completed his basic graduation, which could be in any discipline. Whereas if you're applying as an individual, then you have to be an Indian citizen. For individual, it is mandatory that you get incubated and you complete your basic graduation, which could be in any discipline. And if you're coming from non-profit organization, then make sure there are policies for faculty spin-off. Why an incubator? Because an incubator is a dedicated physical facility which provide access to your scientific work, mentoring, and advisory support. Now, these incubators must have formal long-term approvals from your host institution, or BIRAC or NSTDB. Applicants like faculty or students from research academy cannot claim their own lab as an incubation space. So when you're applying for this BIG, you must have a letter of intent from this incubator. And once you get the grant, an MOU will be asked. your chosen incubator may or may not be your BIG partner. By that I mean, I had shown in my earlier slide that you have 8 partners. So you can choose any one from them who will help you to implement this program. They will monitor the progress. They will do the release of fund. But to carry out your scientific work, you can choose any incubator all over India, which is closer to your location. So as I was saying that the experts score you, they give you marks. So what is that evaluation? So in detail, Smita will be talking about that. But I will just give you a brief that novelty of your idea carries maximum 20 marks. Business plan carries maximum 15 marks. Value proposition carries 20 marks. Technical viability carries the maximum mark, that is 30 marks. Team strength carries 15 marks. And some marks are also reserved for the strategy you show how to overcome the challenges, which could be in IP, regulatory, or environmental. And some mark is also there how well you plan your project for the 18 months and with the proposed budget. Now, quick tips and pointers when you are applying. You must have a proof of concept nature. Novelty must be emphasized. It should be technically feasible. You must check for any IP barriers, that it has freedom of operate. You should have a clear business model, clear indication of PI commitment, and of course, a credible and complete team which will make these goals achievable in 18 months and with the proposed budget. So this is how the proposal application will look, where you have to give the objectives, the start and end of activity, and indicator that this activity is achieved. So this is the example of how you can plan your milestones. So I'll just not take much time on this slides because Smita will be covering that. These are the budgets. These are the heads given by BIRAC. So please stick to these heads when planning the budget. There are some capex for some of the heads like equipment, manpower, outsourcing services, which are capped at 15 lakhs. So this is a success rate of BIG. So we have been partner from call 4, and with each call, the number of applications have been increasing, if you see. And the application received at Venture Center also has been increasing from call 4 to call 20, where we received around 79 applications. But if you see the in principle approval received is very less. That is for last call, the result is yet to be announced. And it is around, for this 19th call, if we say, it was only 5 people who received in principle approval. So it is very competitive in nature and you need to prepare well. Now, I will just take some of the success stories of few people from various domains so that you can get an idea how well they are doing. So this is one of the example of Dr. Anuya Nisal, who is a scientist at NCL, and she had proposed Periosis product for orthopedics under this BIG grant, where she got this grant, and now she has raised follow-on funding for the animal and clinical trials. And she has also come up with 2 more products, that is Cerimet and Ceridrum, that is for breast cancer and advanced wound care. One more example is Shubham Singh. He is an individual applicant. Now he has found a company, that is Puma Labs. His idea was conversion of agricultural crop residue waste to make material for packaging and furniture applications. Now he has his own decentralized facility. He has won various awards from Millennium Alliance also, and he has various national and inter collaboration. Then there is one more example. Then there is one more example of Dr. Vaishali Kulkarni. She was a PhD student who came up with the idea of that non-GMO. Sorry. Okay. She had made this sustainable natural biopigments, and she has raised various VC funding from Chirate Ventures. She has won award at L'Oreal Innovation Runway also. And very proud to show that this year her color palettes were shown at Lakme Fashion Week. So you can see the picture here. And these are some of the success stories of our grantees which are covered as social media. And these are some of the products which were launched recently in the Biotech Startup Expo, which was launched by our Prime Minister. And to get more aspiring stories like this, how they have applied for BIG and what they're doing after BIG, you can connect to a social media handle where we are regularly sharing the social media stories of our successful grantees. So if I see the team, I and Pallavi are taking care of the project monitoring. Mentoring is taken care by Dr. Premnath and Dr. Smita. Overall project management is done by Dr. Manisha and Shruti. So thank you all for your attention. If you want any mentoring or you have any question regarding the eligibility, please free to connect to us over these IDs and phone number. Thank you once again.
I would now call our second speaker, Dr. Smita Kale, for.
Abhinandan, before we start, in case anyone has any questions related to eligibility part of it, because I think Shalini will have to leave for a meeting at around 3. So we can first take up those questions and then we start with the grant writing thing.
Okay, ma'am. Participants can raise their hand if in case of any questions.
In case there are any questions related to eligibility part, then I'll start sharing my screen.
Yeah, all participants can also put in the chat
Ask
box
you a
if they
basic
want.
question. Now we have said ideas should be at the POC stage. Is that the basic requirement, or can it be at just the idea stage also? Yeah. At what? I mean, when you say POC, it should be a demonstrated POC, or how is it?
So actually, even at idea stage, you are eligible to apply for BIG. But as we said, and we saw the data, it's very competitive these days. So
Right.
if you have a POC, some proof, that is always, good to have, and maybe adds to your credibility. So with an idea also you can apply. But if you have a POC, we would encourage that you include that data.
And I think there is one question that came up in the chat box. Can individuals apply? I think, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So
you can apply as an individual and then incorporate a company once you get the BIG grant.
So the grant, before you accept the grant, you have to form the company?
Yes, when you're doing that agreement at that time.
So the agreement will be with the company?
Yeah, even if it is with individual, later, there'll be a change there.
Okay, so what is the timeline for conversion or for creation of the company? Suppose if somebody wants to wait for the grant before they form a company, what is the kind of timeline given there?
So say once you get to know you have got the grant, then there'll be a due diligence, and for the disbursement to occur, there will be a 2 to 3 months gap between.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so in that process, it's very
yes, you can. Yes.
The timeline is good. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other questions related to eligibility? I don't think. Okay. Then I'll start then. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be with ICT students and faculty here. So I'll be talking about how to write a successful grant proposal, and especially we'll be taking the example of this BIG grant by BIRAC. Yeah. So when we are talking about a grant proposal, it's a kind of a document which we are preparing. and this document we will write so that we can get funds for maybe manpower, to build the capacity, get some space, get some equipment to carry out the work to actually test the idea which we have, right? But before we start preparing a proposal document, it's very important that we read the scheme document and understand the guidelines very carefully. Like Shalini told you about the eligibility, what is supported, what is not supported. It's very important to understand that part also. And we can also go one step ahead and research the funding agency, that what kind of projects have been supported in a particular domain, who all have been successful, maybe how many times they have applied. If we get a chance, we go and talk to them. We can go and talk to incubators like us who are partners for this particular grant, implementation partners. So from our experience, we can tell you, what all needs to go in a particular application to make it more successful. So before you actually start working on a grant proposal, read the scheme documents carefully, research the funding agency, try to find out who all have been funded. If you can talk to them, well and good, or try to talk to people like us who can tell you more about that particular grant. So once we have decided we are going to apply and we start working on preparation of this kind of a document, it's not only a technical project report or a document which we are preparing. It is actually a marketing document. So through this document, we are kind of selling our dream. We're trying to convince people that this is something which we have as an idea, this is doable, and this is how it is doable, and why I am the best person to do it. Okay, so it's more like, think of it as a document through which you're pitching. So you don't get a chance in the first attempt to go and actually present there, but what will go there is your document. So make sure that whatever passion you have for that, for your idea, with the passion you would have presented it, the same passion you need to put across in that document, in your research proposal, which will be submitted to the funding agency. So we need to understand what are the funding agency's key questions, what are they looking for in a proposal. So they would be looking at, what is your goal, what is your objective, what you want to achieve with the resources you are asking to that funding agency. So whether your ask, whatever you are asking for, fits the scheme of the thing. So they also have some specific domains, areas which they have identified, which would be supported. So whether you are applying for that, okay, so what's the synergy there? How passionate you are about your objectives, how thoroughly you have thought about what is required to actually achieve that goal, means what should be the different activities which need to be performed. So how well thought your plan is, whether it is really doable. So when you're really serious about things, you will really think at a very granular level and put down all the minute details in your plan so that it looks doable, feasible, and then you will be able to achieve your goal. Then comes the credibility. So from where the credibility will come. So who you are. So your bio, your CV will speak for you, your track record, what kind of publications you have or prior experience, your academic background, all this, not only yours, but your team as a whole. So that, and also what kind of work you have performed. So we were talking about proof of concept. So if you have done some work already and maybe published it or patented it, so that will also speak for your credibility. Next comes resonance. Do you really care for my money? So when you really care for the money of the funding agency and, you have read the document, the guidelines carefully, you will try to align your application to what is their expectation. So whether those wavelengths match, and have you taken pains and efforts to align it to make it easy for me as a reviewer and as a funding agency to understand that this is the scope and this is how it matches with what we are looking for. Then finally, what are the resource needs? So as Shalini mentioned, this is a 50 lakhs grant for 18 months period. So whatever plan you're proposing, that should be for that next 18 months, and whatever activities you are proposing should fit into that budget. So you have to take care that, you know, you don't propose something which is not possible in 18 months with 50 lakhs. So that match also should be there. We all need to understand what are TRL levels now that we are applying to different, funding agencies for fellowships or grant funding or seed funding, or when we go to angel investors, they'll ask you at what TRL level you are. So the technology, once we have the idea with us, it is at TRL 1. And as we start working on it, we perform some experiments. That is when we de-risk. There is a risk associated when it is only there in our mind. But when we start talking to people, when we start working on it, we generate data which tells that, okay, this is how it will work, and it is having some potential. So that's when we de-risk the technology. And as we keep on doing experiments, we check its repeatability, reproducibility at a certain scale. We keep increasing the scale. That is when we move ahead in the technology development from TRL 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So when we say early stage, like BIG is early stage, so it is for somewhere when people are at TRL 1, 2 to 3. Then BIRAC has different grants for the higher TRL levels. And the aim here is the ideas which can travel the whole journey of this technology development and finally reach market. Those are the ones which are selected and supported. So let's look at the different sections of the grant proposal here in the BIG application, which are the different sections you will have to work on. So the first section there is the summary and abstract. So when we are building this summary, we have to keep in mind all these different components which you look at, which are there at the left hand side here. So we need to capture one statement about each one of them in our summary. So our summary should be a representation of all of these points. And then there is a concept note which you need to attach after the summary. This concept note can be a PDF file, which we can have all the kind of details, the figures, diagrams, flow charts, which you want to, include there, which will give a better explanation of your technology and what work you have done and what you plan to do. So all that you can do here, but try to make the summary very impactful, because this is the first thing, the title and summary a reviewer is going to read. Okay, so that has to be very, very convincing. So make sure you have covered each of these components and it represents, the representation is there in the summary. Next, we come to objectives. So whenever we are defining those objectives, there will be a broad goal which will be reflected in your title or your statement or scope, and then there will be some objectives. So these objectives need to be SMART. So we all know about the SMART objectives. These should be something which are measurable, attainable. Okay, so if as far as possible, try to make them quantitative. Wherever possible, try to mention the sample size, how much of data will be collected, what will be the methodology, and the objectives here, we'll have to break them into milestones. We'll be talking about that more. Yeah. So as I said earlier, that this is more of a marketing document. So you need to actually build a storyline in your application there. So by the storyline, we mean that it will have, it would look something like this, that this is an unmet need, which if solved will have, say, certain enormous impact in this way, or the solution lies in this. People must have tried it before, but how they have tried and what are the shortcomings which still exist and how we propose to solve it in what different way. So these could be the different sentences which make a storyline for your application. Now coming to the first part, the title, very important, because title is something, people will look at the first time. Title will help them understand which domain you fall into, or even to which reviewer the application should go. So make sure your title is clear, crisp. If you can even make it very, very specific, better. Then there'll be other details like who is the applicant, either an individual or if you're applying as a company. If you're applying as an individual, you will have to select an incubator facility and who is your BIG partner. So after the title, you can include a statement like this, which is a clear definition of your POC, that is proof of concept. So you might say that you are trying to demonstrate proof of concept for what is your product, okay, for what is its application, to be used by whom, and how will they benefit. So if you can talk about these different components, and while doing that, please keep in mind that when you're describing your product value or its features, we usually say like it's cost effective, point of care, handheld. Good to say that, but if we can also add some of the quantitative terms there, that will make it better, more specific. So if I'm saying I'm trying to make it cost effective, if I say it will be 30% more cost effective than the current gold standard, what is being current used currently for this problem in the market. Then if it's a prototype, what it is, whether it's a diagnostic device, it's a drug, whether you're trying to develop a process, software, nutraceutical, mention that what is its application, for which disease, for treatment or for detecting what, or for growth enhancement of which plant, who will be your consumer, whether it will be B2B, B2C, whether it's a doctor, a farmer, any particular industry, and how they will benefit. So there again, if you could be specific. Now comes what is the big problem you are trying to solve. So this has to come out very well, that what is the unmet need which you have identified, and if it's an unmet need, if people have already worked on it, what was the standard of care which people are using, but say XYZ are the problems associated, or still there is a gap which you have identified and you are trying to address. And be very specific when you're describing your problem. For example, if we take an example of developing a diagnostic kit, a point of care diagnostic kit for diabetes, then if I am writing about a problem statement, I directly start with what is the problem statement or problem associated with diagnosis of diabetes these days, rather than talking about diabetes, occurrence of diabetes, telling about the number of people suffering from diabetes. Instead, if I can directly jump to the main topic, that is the diagnosis of diabetes. So once I have explained the problem, and while you are citing the problem, try to use references from regulatory authorities, say NIH, or some associations for that particular, say if there is diabetes, then look at those associations, try to cite numbers, try to add data, charts, okay. Then comes your product. So what is the proposed solution? It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be a process. So define it clearly. So in this case, it is a product. So we are saying it's a product. Then try to list the features, the main features of your product. And if possible, if you can add, please add a figure or a diagram, an image, which will show how your product will look like and how it will be used. So if I'm talking to you about diagnosis of diabetes, and if I didn't have this image here and I would just talk about it and explain you the features, it would take some time for you to relate to it and visualize it in your mind, and everyone would visualize it differently. But if I use this image here, it tells me that my product will come with a lancet with which I'll prick the finger, I'll place a drop of the blood on this strip, which will also come along with the product, and that strip will go inside this device, and the device will tell me, there'll be a digital monitor there where I can see how much is the blood glucose level. So this tells me that I might have to pay one time for the device, but I'll have to keep buying a new lancet and the strips from that company. So this is how, with help of an image, I am able to explain how it will be used, and maybe what would be my business model also, what all things will be recurring and one-time purchases. So this is how an image actually helps. Then after you have explained your broadly you have explained your product, then come to the details about the underlying technology behind it. For example, in that product over here, what is the biomarker I am looking for? What is that biochemical reaction which is happening? How sensitive, how robust it is, how accurate it is. All that I'll talk about here. which is the sensor I am using. What is the logic behind using that? If anyone has used it, or I have improved and I have come up with a new sensor. So all that I'll talk about in this slide. So after I have explained the problem, the product, the technology, we saw that there is a lot of weightage for novelty. So novelty will come from two things. One is if you already have a patent or you wish to file a patent, then we all know that in a patent, there will be some technical claims which we will be drafting. So try to use the same language of the technical language over here while you're explaining the novelty of your product. And the novelty will also come from differentiation. So when you differentiate your product or technology from others who are there in the market, who are your competitors. So when you're explaining novelty, I said use the technical terms like you would use in your patent. So avoid the terms like it's very cost effective, rapid, point of care, very user friendly. That's why it is novel. No. These are some broad features which will come in your when you're explaining your key features maybe, but talk about the patentable features. And then for explaining the differentiation, if you can have a simple competitive landscape chart or table, something of this sort, so where you can identify parameters against which you will compare your technology and the competitor technology. So you can list down those parameters and then your technology and say X, Y, Z, your competitors. So what is the technology, the mode of execution? You can compare the technologies with respect to ease of use, efficiency, performance, selling price, time. So you need to, actually brainstorm and come out with very good parameters against which you can compare and against which even a consumer or whoever is going to buy your product will compare your product and technology for. And here we have also used a color coding. So wherever you are better than your competitor, maybe you can highlight yourself in green color and competitor would be highlighted in red or yellow or orange here. And again, try to use very specific quantitative terms if possible, if you have them with you. Like here, if my technique is taking only 30 minutes for detection compared to the competitor where they're taking maybe 2 hours, 8 hours. So I use those numbers instead of saying, fast, slow. Or if selling price, I have to say I don't know what it would be, but I'm expecting it will be 10x lesser than this. So I can put that 10x lesser instead of saying my price will be less and theirs will be higher. Okay, so try to use these kind of terms and color coding so that it's at a glance, it's easy to compare and understand the comparison. Next comes, what is the opportunity? So what is the big impact you are going to create, maybe in that industry, market, to the society, to the patients for whom the product is. So what is that big problem you are trying to solve, with which, what kind of economic, societal impact you are going to create? So talk about it. Mostly you can talk about the national impact more over here and then maybe international. Now, once you have talked about opportunity, what are the challenges and risks factors? So if you really understand your area very well, or you may be a little new to this, but if you have experts or mentors who are guiding you, they can help you understand what could be the risk later in the technology development journey. So do you know what could be the risk? They could be related to environment, some hazards, chemicals, or while scaling it up, or regulatory risks. So what we need to understand is, do you understand those risks? Have you identified them early in your technology development? And if you have identified, if you understand them, you will also put in efforts to find out how those can be mitigated or taken care of. What could be the alternate strategy if I get stuck with that particular challenge or risk? So this is also a very important section where you will have to list down some risk factors, challenges, and do you have some alternate strategies in your mind to take care of those? Then very important section is preliminary work. I'll talk more about it. And finally, there'll be a question, what will be the proposed end outcome, whether it will be a product, a service, or you will develop a technology which you wish to license after you have reached a certain TRL level. Then comes this particular slide where you will highlight that at what stage you are currently, what TRL level, and then what will you work on, and what is the end goal, what is the expected TRL level. So we talked about the preliminary work done data or the POC data, if you can include that. So try to include the results from your studies, because these are the indicators that it is doable, it is technically feasible, you know how to do it, so you are credible enough, maybe you have that kind of expertise, you know how to do it, you have done it before successfully. Also the results will indicate whether it has a potential, it is showing some good results or not. If you have a prototype, show its pictures. So current status, very specifically tell them what all experiments have been done, what is the inference from that studies, and at what stage you are, what will you complete with the grant, and finally what will be the end goal of the grant. So I'll talk about end goal in the milestone slides again. Then what is very important is BIG is all about taking your research to commercialization. So unless it has a commercialization potential, it will not be supported. So what is the future plan for commercialization? So do you know, after a certain step in the technology development, what is required to take it to next level? What kind of approvals, licenses, what kind of funding, whom to go for that funding, all that would be asked, so that you can depict in this particular way. So this is, we call it as a commercialization strategy timeline slide, wherein you will say that maybe by the end of BIG, we will have a validated prototype ready with us. And then after that, what are the different steps? Okay, so you can identify those steps and you can indicate how long each one of them will take. Say, suppose after I have the validated prototype ready, I might need to do some more clinical validation, field trials, and whom I'll collaborate with, which hospitals, who will be my collaborators, how many people I need to test it, what kind of funds I will raise. Like say BIG's early stage, you might raise SIBRI, BIPP, or seed funding, and how long that will take. Then what is the next step, how long that will take, which kind of regulatory approval are required for my kind of product. If it's a drug development, I might need to do preclinical, then phase 1, phase 2, go to CDSCO. If it is medical devices, then again CDSCO, and what class of medical device it is, have I identified. So all this you need to specify here based on your project, your product, whether manufacturing license would be required, or you will go for contract manufacturing, marketing, and finally say how long it will take. Totally say if it might take 4 years, 5 years to reach the market. So going back now, once you are done with the commercialization strategy timeline slide, which I jumped from this slide, next very important thing is, do you understand how this particular idea will be converted into a business? So what will be the business model means, what are you going to offer? The research will actually turn into what kind of product offering, to whom, who will be your customer, end user, end consumer. It can be a industry also, B2B, or it can be B2C, directly customer will buy, or it can also be B2G, where government might buy, depending on what kind of work you're doing. Also try to look at startups who are already working on this kind of ideas and around this area, what kind of funding they have raised, whether there is an investor interest, look at their business models too, and to do a comparison of pricing and to come up with a pricing. Then very, very important thing is, have you looked at what is the freedom to operate? So novelty, and there is a IP strategy. So have you filed a patent? If not, have you looked at different patents which might be related to the same project or idea? And if there are some patents filed, it shouldn't happen that after you have worked for 2 to 3 years, you realize that people have already patented it, and then there'll be some problems with patent infringement and all that. So just to avoid all that, make sure you do a good prior art search with the help of a good patent attorney firm. And if you can attach that prior art search report to your application, that will be really good. Or if you have already filed a patent, then put that number there and attach the document. So look for what is the freedom to operate there, and then plan your work accordingly. Then next comes your milestones, your work plan. So how serious you are and how well you know your project, that will be demonstrated by this slide, where you really need to divide your work into 3 major milestones. So it's a 18 months grant. So you can have a first milestone at the end of 6 months, then at the end of 12 months, and then at the end of 18 months. Say for in this example, if I say my first milestone is I'll be ready with the design of my prototype. Then the next column, I would have actually worked on different activities or my work plan to actually get to the design. So there I might say that I will procure the equipment, I will hire people, I will work towards getting the design made using PCB, electronic circuit. I'll work toward mechanical analysis. And then once I have said I will work towards all this, then next comes is how will I get to know whether you have completed that activity? What will demonstrate that you have completed that milestone? So if I had said I'll purchase equipment, then I will check whether that equipment PO is there, whether you have already installed it in your lab. If you have said I'll hire 2 people, whether you have hired those 2 people, what expertise, whether your design is ready, whether you have done the mechanical analysis. So this is how we will keep checking against whatever you have defined in your proposal and in the agreement. So you have to carefully think about it, because once it goes into the agreement and everyone has signed it, later changing it is little difficult. So that's why we really need to spend a lot of time and think about it carefully and then finalize it. And the last milestone here, if you see, we say that we will set numerical parameters like pilot manufacturing of 20 units and clinical evaluation at 3 centers. So again, we are trying to be quantitative. We are specifying how many units we will make. Because with if I have specified 20 units, then for my budget, I will calculate, all the resources required accordingly. And I'll work towards getting those 20 units in these 18 months. And finally, there is a grant end deliverable, the final goal. So what is actually your target? So if you're developing a product, we always have a target product profile in our mind, right? So unless we have that defined, we will not work towards it. So in this case, if I say that the diagnostic device which I'm developing for blood glucose level detection, I want it to be done in 2 minutes with a limit of detection of say X milligram per ml at this particular sensitivity and specificity. So if I have defined this on day 1, then this all 18 months, I'll make sure that I do iterations, I keep doing experiments until I have achieved this particular end deliverable. Now, how why the milestones are important and how the disbursement will happen. So once you have got the grant, the agreement, the due diligence and agreement will happen. And at the time of agreement, maximum 30% of the funds will be released. Then the further releases will happen based on your completion of the milestones and the report submission. And there will be a project monitoring committee review. There will be a committee which will have technical experts and internal mentors, and they will review your work. And if satisfied, then they'll release the money. Very important is do not change the budget heads. Please stick to the same budget heads. And there is a max for some of the budget heads, like equipment, you can't spend more than 30%, so 15 lakhs. Same way manpower, travel, IP. So stick to all these, and then a justification for each one of them would be required. So make sure that you can't pay the advisors or mentors. The people who are full-time can get paid. So very good justification will come from your work plan. So if in my work plan, I am saying that this particular testing has to be done, and for that testing, a particular equipment is required, then that equipment should be listed over here, and that justification that what kind of test will be done with that equipment or what activity will be carried out. Same goes for consumables, manpower, which expertise people, why, how will they contribute, where will we travel to, for what purpose, what would be outsourced. All this needs to be justified. Very, very important. Again, highest weightage after novelty is for team. It's almost same, 2020. So who is leading the team? What is the brief bio of each one of them? So your name, your current affiliation, your years of experience, your expertise, and how will you contribute, whether you will be the PI, co-PI, or you will be the business mentor, or you will be the technical lead there. And there'll be some people who will be full-time, but there would be some people who will be part-time, who are maybe senior people, who are just advisors from industry or academia. Try to include their profile also, and be very specific in telling that how will they contribute to the project, especially if it's a healthcare project, something, say for example, if it was this diagnostic, I should have ideally a diabetologist or someone, a pathologist on my advisor panel there. Again, the criteria, will repeat it again. So how technically feasible your idea is, because sometimes, ideas, as an idea, I can think of doing XYZ. But then when I actually look at the literature and I try to look whether people have done it, and then I understand, okay, no one has done it because maybe these could have been the difficulties and technically it may not be feasible to achieve it. Okay. So how technically feasible and scalable it is, what is the novelty, what is the importance, what impact you are going to create, whether it can be commercialized, and how does the commercialization timeline and strategy looks like, whether you have a good team, strong team in place, have you identified the barriers and do you have alternate strategies to address them, and finally, how good and strong is your plan. If it is very carefully thought of and laid, so that will have weightage. And please remember, it is not an additive score that I will add how much you get out of 10 over here or 20, and then finally if you get more than 70% you qualify. No, it is not an additive score. Even if you fail in any one of the aspects, your proposal fails totally. Okay, if we don't feel the team is good enough, it's just 2 students who have just graduated and don't have any advisor and may not be able to do it themselves, or if we feel that this is something which has already been done, you're not doing anything new, so that may not be supported. Or if the plan doesn't looks good, with the plan we get to see that, okay, you may not be able to achieve what you have defined as your end goal. So all this is looked into. So finally, some tips and pointers. So be very realistic. By being realistic, factual and specific, I mean whatever can be achieved in 18 months with 50 lakhs, keeping in mind all the budget heads which you need to, you can't exceed some of them, and the people you have in your team, resources available. Try to be very realistic there. Don't just, you can overdo, but while you're actually putting it down, stay humble. Don't overpromise which you cannot achieve. Don't talk in generalities and emotional terms. Be very factual there. Use a language anyone can understand. So some places you will have to use a technical language, but when you're writing a summary, there'll be some keywords in your summary and title also, but don't try to make it very, very technical, which people will not be able to understand at all and relate to if they are not experts in that. Choose a format that is very clear, easy to read. Don't make it very text heavy. Keep some points, break it down into points which are easy to read, and there should be a good flow. Know your funder, as I said, research the funder, read the guidelines, go to their website, try to find out who all have got it, try to meet or ask good questions to the funding agency people. Their contact details will also be there. Start with a brief summary. This will help you to focus and, the reader also on your request. Budget has to be very realistic. Stick to the guidelines in case of budget. Do your calculations well. Make sure that the figures are right over there. Submit all the requested application materials. Don't fail in, so you can have a checklist made that what all needs to be attached along with the application, some kind of general documents, letters, any other supporting document. If there are some letter of interest from a company which will be buying your technology, or if you have already got an ethical clearance committee approval for doing the clinical validation, or you have a collaboration in place, so letter from your collaborator, all these, supporting documents which can go along with your application. Take your time, think, write it again and again. Well thought proposals are well received. So make sure you work with your team and each one contributes. Read the instructions again and again, go back to them whenever required. If you have any doubts, meet the deadline for your application. So make sure that you don't wait, because it's an online process. So sometimes there might be an issue with internet or many people will be trying at the last minute. So there could be some crash. So don't wait for that deadline. Try to be on time. So that's it from my side. So never give up. We have seen cases where people have made it in their 4th and 5th attempt also for BIG. So in your first attempt, try to follow all these tips and pointers so that you get successful. If not, this is a good opportunity where your application or idea gets reviewed by experts from all over the country, and you get to know their comments on the idea. You can always work on those comments, recycle, rewrite your application and submit again. But make sure before resubmission, you have worked considerably on the comments, addressed all those comments, improved your application, and then you submit it next time. So that's an important tip there. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to take the questions.
In case of any questions, participants can raise their hands or put in the chat.
And this was about BIG, but since there are a lot of students here in the audience, there are different fellowship programs also by Department of Science and Technology, by DBT also, and there are some CSR grants also. So if you want to start immediately after your graduation, you can please write to us. We'll help you understand which kind of fellowship programs will be suitable for you. So how many of you all would be applying this time?
So we do have some of our pre-incubatees at ICT-NICE. Although many of these ideas, some of these are ideas which have gone little ahead. Some are a little later, advanced little more. Of course, we'll take a call based on the preparedness, but of course, this session definitely we wanted to have and make them explicitly aware of what big grant is. And one of our incubatees he has recently got a big grant, so he's also there.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, probably 1 or 2 applicants this time, I guess. Just to yeah.
Sure, we'll be happy to mentor them one-on-one also. You can connect them with us.
Yes.
The whole idea is to sensitize them,
Yes.
Yes.
Because sometimes this factor of money puts off many students. They feel entrepreneurship is not my game because I don't have the money.
Yeah.
This kind of talk kind of sensitizes them, and then even if 2, 3 of them wake up, that's a job successful.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
So you need not have, a lot of money with you to be an entrepreneur. There are a lot of funding opportunities available from Department of Science and Technology, DBT, even CSR. So it's just that you need to go and talk to people that this is the idea and get to know which could be the suitable funding opportunity for me and then apply for it.
I have one query which, not exactly my query, but when we talk to different different students, and then they usually come up with this. Say like that they have an idea, they've started working on it. It's not even a POC is still not done, but they're worried about somebody stealing their idea. Say participating in hackathons, or again for that matter, sometimes when we apply for grants, so they're always skeptical about their ideas being taken by somebody without them knowing it, and then somebody may be working on it. Although we keep telling them that it's very rare that what you have in your head, what idea talks about, and somebody exactly replicating that, but this answer is still
Yeah, I do understand the concern there. Yeah. So it's like, when I said you'll have to explain your work plan. So you broadly explain it. You don't put all the details. Okay. So there is something which is very confidential. So keep that confidential thing with you only. You need not reveal it. No reviewer is going to ask you that you explain the exact process over there. No one is going to ask you. So that's also a skill of writing, that how you keep some things confidential so that even if I read the whole text there, I am not able to copy it. So that is something you need to learn. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, we follow this regular or age-old trick where I tell them whatever you have done so far, you print it and then sign it, whosoever has contributed to that, and then make 4 or 5 copies, or maybe make 4 or 5 different versions as in originals, and then put it in self-addressed envelope and post it. So, and then when you receive it back, you don't open it, because then there is a date stamp on that. So tomorrow, if there is a some conflict or so, you can always show that this is what you did. So
yes, yeah. Having a good document is always good, like especially the lab notebooks like we have in our research labs, right? Where we write what was done, what results were obtained, and we sign it and keep. So that's a good proof of that has been done in that particular lab by that person and when it was done. Yes, true.
But many times the enthusiasm and the passion for their idea that actually skyrocket, and the thin line between what you should be discussing, what you should not be with outsiders. So that's where they are always skeptical.
Yeah, and whenever you really want to discuss, all the small minute details also with some of the advisors, maybe you can always go with a copy of a CDA, confidentiality agreement, and make them sign it and then only discuss it.
Yes.
Practice that.
Thank you so
One
much.
question. This is, of course, if students or anybody has, I can wait. Okay. So this was, I thought I heard you say that if you have an idea, which you, as an individual, which you want to take forward, and then license out the technology to somebody else.
Yes.
That also is funded under big.
Yes, that also gets funded. You can clearly say that we will develop it up to this level, and then this will be licensed to whoever, if you have identified, or you can say that, these would be the companies who would be interested. Sometimes people even have EOI from those industries that they're interested.
Okay, but suppose there's nothing like that, it is difficult, right? But you should preferably have an end point to deliver.
Yes, correct.
Vinandan?
I guess so. There are no more questions.
There are no further questions. We will
move to the vote of thanks.
Yes.
It gives me immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks for this event to all the dignitaries present here. I would like to thank our speakers, Dr. Smita Kale, and I guess Shalini ma'am left, Dr. Shalini ma'am, for making us aware about the big scheme and shining the light on the process of grant writing. I would also like to thank all the participants present here.
We would also like to thank Dr. Devarajan for arranging this, Dr. Shamlan and Dr. Kharkar. I guess you are leading the innovation cell along with.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So we'll be happy if you have, if the students there or your incubatees have any questions, you can always connect with us. And even if the students want to reach out, you can share our email address with them. We'll be happy to guide them.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just a minute, ma'am.
Yeah.
Can the participants switch on their camera? Like we can have a photo.
Okay.
I guess nobody's there to switch on the camera. Anyways.
Most people are video shy these days. But I think just give them a minute. Sometimes it takes them a little
Yes.
time to. Yeah, see, they're coming on. Just give them some time. Yeah, we'd like to see all your faces.
Ami, Pooja, Chaitanya, Vanashri. Dr. Deepak, Ram, many of them there. Come on, I guess. Well, Abhinandan.
Yes, sir. Done.
I think, yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay,
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Smita, Dr. Pallavi, and Dr. Shalini so much for
Welcome,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank
a
you.
very nicely spread out lecture, very easy to understand and follow.
Sure.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you.
You all. Bye.
Bye.